The end of Tesla? China's new EV changes the game. There is a new electric sedan coming out of China that is doing something that would have sounded almost impossible just a few years ago. It is not simply trying to drive farther than a Tesla, accelerate faster than a sports car, or place more screens inside the cabin. It is attacking the single biggest weakness that has followed electric vehicles since the beginning: charging time. The car is called the BYD Han L EV, and the number that could force the entire industry to rethink its strategy is not its claimed range, its enormous power output, or its supercar-level acceleration. It is 5 minutes. BYD says its new platform can add roughly 400 kilometers of driving range in about the same amount of time it takes someone to walk into a convenience store, buy a drink, and return to the car. If this technology works reliably at scale, the next electric vehicle battle will no longer be about who can install the largest battery. It will be about who can make charging feel almost as convenient as filling a gasoline tank. And this time, the company asking that question is not Tesla. Before we get into how BYD is attempting to make this possible, hit the like button and subscribe, because this story is much bigger than one new Chinese car. It involves a company that started by manufacturing batteries, a country that was once dismissed as a producer of cheap vehicles, and a global power shift that has been happening so quickly that many people have not fully noticed it yet. In less than a decade, China has transformed itself into the center of the electric vehicle industry. But the Han L matters because it suggests that a new stage of that transformation has begun. Chinese companies are no longer satisfied with producing more electric cars than everyone else. They are now trying to establish the technical standards that the rest of the automotive world may eventually have to follow. That does not mean Tesla is about to collapse, and it does not mean the Han L will suddenly appear on every road in Europe or North America. What it does mean is that the advantages that once made Tesla look almost untouchable are now being attacked from several directions at the same time. To understand why this car matters, it helps to remember what Tesla originally changed. Before the Model S, most electric vehicles were viewed as slow, small, unattractive machines designed mainly for short urban trips. Tesla transformed them into symbols of performance, technology, and the future. The Model 3 and Model Y later brought that image to a much larger audience, while the Supercharger network reduced the fear of being stranded without electricity. Traditional automakers tried to copy the formula, but most could only reproduce individual pieces of it. One company could build an attractive electric car but give it slow charging. Another could offer long range but struggle with software. Tesla's real advantage was never only the vehicle. It was the complete system surrounding it. The car, software, battery management, charging network, brand, and customer experience all worked together. That ecosystem created a defensive wall around the company. But every defensive wall is built on an assumption. Tesla's assumption was that no competitor could control batteries, motors, power electronics, software, and manufacturing scale at the same time. BYD is now attempting to prove that assumption wrong. The strange part is that BYD did not begin as a car manufacturer. When the company was founded in the 1990s, its original business focused on rechargeable batteries. Automobiles came later, and for years BYD remained almost invisible to consumers outside China. But that battery background became extremely valuable when the automotive industry began moving toward electric power. While many traditional manufacturers had to purchase battery cells, power electronics, and key components from a complicated network of outside suppliers, BYD gradually brought more of those technologies under its own control. Battery cells, battery packs, semiconductors, electric motors, vehicle platforms, and software systems became parts of one increasingly integrated organization. This is the part that is often missed when people describe BYD as nothing more than a company that sells inexpensive Chinese cars. The low price is only the visible result. Underneath it is a vertically integrated industrial machine that has been developing for decades. And once a company controls that many layers of its own technology, it can move improvements from the laboratory into mass production much faster than a manufacturer waiting for several separate suppliers to coordinate with one another. At the same time, China became the largest and most aggressive electric vehicle testing ground on Earth. Hundreds of models entered a market where younger customers increasingly viewed large displays, software updates, driver assistance systems, connected services, and fast charging as basic expectations rather than luxury features. Competition became so intense that a vehicle falling behind by a single technology cycle could disappear almost immediately. This environment is very different from the traditional automotive industry, where one platform might remain on sale with minor changes for close to a decade. In China, product cycles have been compressed, software improves constantly, and manufacturers sometimes introduce major upgrades within months rather than years. Companies are not only competing on price, they are competing through battery chemistry, electrical architecture, processing power, charging performance, manufacturing speed, and control of the supply chain. The Han L did not appear because one engineering team suddenly had a good idea. It emerged from a market where standing still is almost the same as moving backward. That pressure has forced Chinese automakers to innovate at a speed that many established global manufacturers were never designed to match. When BYD introduced the Han L, its exterior design was not the most important part. It looks like a large, low, premium electric sedan intended to compete with expensive vehicles from both Chinese and international manufacturers. But underneath the body is what BYD calls the Super E platform, an electrical architecture designed around approximately 1,000 volts. The battery, motor system, power electronics, thermal management, and several supporting components were engineered to operate inside the same high-voltage environment. That matters because an electric vehicle cannot simply increase its charging speed by attaching a larger cable. High electrical current creates heat. Heat reduces efficiency, places stress on components, and can force the vehicle to reduce charging power to protect the battery. BYD approached the problem as a complete system rather than a single component upgrade. Instead of improving only the charging connector, the company redesigned the battery, power semiconductors, motors, electrical pathways, and cooling systems together. That is why the Han L represents more than one new model. It is the first major demonstration of an architecture that could eventually be used across a much wider range of BYD vehicles. The headline number is 1 megawatt, or 1,000 kilowatts of peak charging power. Many popular electric vehicles currently charge at only a fraction of that level. BYD says its system can support extremely high electrical current, reach a charging rate around 10 C, and add approximately 2 kilometers of claimed range every second under the right conditions. In theory, 5 minutes could provide around 400 kilometers of additional driving distance. This is the moment when the story moves beyond a simple competition between specifications. For years, electric vehicle buyers have been told that they must change their habits. They should charge overnight, plan long journeys carefully, search for available chargers, and accept that stopping for electricity takes longer than stopping for gasoline. BYD is proposing the opposite approach. Instead of forcing people to adapt their behavior to the electric vehicle should adapt itself to habits that drivers have developed over more than a century. If hundreds of kilometers can be added during a short stop, one of the final practical advantages of the gasoline engine begins to disappear. But this is also where the difference between a technology demonstration and everyday reality becomes important. A car capable of receiving 1 megawatt does not mean that every charging station can deliver 1 megawatt. That amount of power requires specialized equipment, strong electrical grid connections, sophisticated cooling, local permits, and a significant amount of investment. BYD has announced plans to deploy thousands of extremely powerful charging stations in China, but an entire charging network cannot be created overnight. The challenge becomes even larger outside China, where electrical standards, charging connectors, land regulations, utility pricing, and approval processes vary from country to country. This is one area where Tesla still has a major advantage. The Supercharger network is not only a theoretical number announced during a product presentation. It is an established charging system operating across many important markets. The Han L has not defeated the Tesla ownership experience simply because it can achieve an impressive charging peak. What it has done is change customer expectations. From now on, buyers may begin asking why a newly released electric car still requires 20, 30, or even 40 minutes at a charging station. The problem inside the battery is even more difficult. Fast charging is not simply a matter of forcing more electricity into the cells. When ions move too quickly, internal temperature increases, resistance becomes more important, and unwanted chemical reactions can reduce battery life or create safety risks. To make extremely fast charging possible, BYD had to reduce internal resistance, improve current pathways, redesign thermal management, and control the battery with software capable of reacting almost instantly. The company's advantage is that the battery is not a mysterious box purchased from another manufacturer. BYD can develop the cells, the pack, the cooling system, the electrical architecture, and the control software as one combined product. This is one of the biggest differences between an automaker that assembles electric vehicles and a company that owns much of the energy technology inside them. It also explains why the Han L could matter far beyond one premium sedan. If BYD can eventually move this charging system into less expensive models, megawatt-level charging will no longer look like an experimental feature reserved for luxury vehicles. It could become a standard that every serious competitor is expected to approach. The next part of the Super E platform sounds like something designed for a racing car. Its electric motor can rotate at more than 30,000 revolutions per minute. Higher motor speed allows engineers to generate a large amount of power from a smaller and lighter unit, but it also creates enormous technical challenges. The rotor, bearings, cooling system, materials, and manufacturing tolerances must all survive extreme mechanical forces. At those speeds, even a tiny imbalance can become destructive. BYD says a single motor module can produce hundreds of kilowatts, helping the vehicle reach top speeds normally associated with high-performance sports cars. The point is not that Han L owners will regularly drive at 300 kilometers per hour. Most will never come close. The deeper significance is power density. A smaller motor that produces more output gives engineers additional space, reduces weight, and creates more flexibility in the way the entire vehicle is packaged. A technology that appears to exist only for extreme acceleration can eventually improve efficiency, reduce material use, and lower production costs. That is how high-end engineering slowly moves into the mainstream. Then there is the number the internet always pays attention to, roughly 2.7 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in the most powerful configuration. A little more than a decade ago, that level of acceleration belonged almost exclusively to exotic supercars, costing as much as a house. Now a large family sedan built by BYD can enter the same performance category. That tells us how quickly electric propulsion has reversed the old automotive hierarchy. During the age of internal combustion engines, extreme power required complicated engines, expensive transmissions, reinforced components, and years of mechanical development. Electric performance is still difficult, but modular motors and electronic control allow high power to spread into lower price categories much faster. Tesla was the first company to turn supercar acceleration into a mass-market marketing tool. BYD is taking that language and combining it with extremely fast charging, internal battery production, and aggressive pricing. Speed alone cannot defeat Tesla, but speed combined with short charging times, manufacturing scale, and control of the supply chain creates a package that becomes much harder to dismiss. Price may be the part that transforms the Han L from an impressive engineering demonstration into a strategic threat. When advanced technology appears in a limited production supercar, the rest of the industry can admire it and then continue operating normally. But the Han L is designed as a mass-produced premium sedan, priced in China near vehicles that may offer less power and slower charging. BYD can attempt this because it controls much of the value chain and can spread research and development costs across millions of vehicles. This is a pattern that has already appeared in several Chinese industries. Technology improves quickly, production volume rises, costs fall, and eventually the expected market standard changes. Tesla once used a similar strategy against traditional automakers. It introduced technology that looked expensive and unusual, increased production, lowered prices, and forced established companies to react. Now Tesla is facing a competitor using the same general playbook, but operating inside a manufacturing ecosystem that may be larger, faster, and under more competitive pressure than anything Tesla experienced during its early growth. Hardware, however, is not the entire battle. Tesla still has deep advantages in software, fleet data, brand recognition, charging access, and the way its products are understood in many international markets. A vehicle can charge faster and still fail if its interface is confusing, its service network is weak, or its driver assistance features do not create trust. BYD is investing heavily in sensors, processing systems, connected software, and automated driving technology. But global deployment creates different regulatory challenges in every region. A system developed and tested on Chinese roads does not automatically behave perfectly in Europe, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, or Latin America. Tesla has also spent years building the image of a software company that happens to manufacture cars. BYD in many countries must still explain what the brand represents. This is why calling the Han L the immediate end of Tesla would be far too simple. Tesla has not been defeated, but its monopoly over the story of electric vehicle technology is disappearing. From now on, every major Tesla announcement will be compared directly with the speed of innovation coming from China. The greatest threat to Tesla may not even be inside China. BYD has been expanding through Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and other markets where the electric transition is still developing. Many consumers in those regions do not have decades of loyalty to one electric car brand. They care about price, range, charging time, warranty coverage, repair access, interior technology, and whether the vehicle works reliably in local conditions. If BYD builds factories in those regions, develops dealership networks, and gradually introduces its newest technology outside China, the company does not need to dominate the United States to become one of the most powerful automakers in the world. The Han L is therefore more important as a signal than as an individual product. It tells international consumers that the most advanced BYD technology available in China today could eventually appear in a more affordable vehicle in their own market. That expectation can be extremely powerful. People may delay buying an existing electric car because they believe something faster, cheaper, and easier to charge is about to arrive. This expansion is also creating a political reaction. Electric vehicles are not treated as ordinary consumer products anymore. They are connected to employment, manufacturing security, energy policy, software, data collection, and national industrial strategy. As Chinese vehicles enter international markets, With advanced technology and competitive prices, governments may respond with tariffs, local production requirements, software restrictions, or new safety regulations. Some of that has already begun, but trade barriers do not make the technology disappear. They only change where vehicles are assembled and how quickly they can enter a market. BYD is responding by investing in manufacturing outside China. The strategy is familiar. Japanese and South Korean automakers once exported vehicles into foreign markets, built factories closer to customers, hired local workers, and gradually transformed themselves from outside challengers into permanent parts of local economies. If BYD follows the same path successfully, the competition will no longer be described simply as Chinese cars against Western cars. It will become one global manufacturing network competing against another, with factories, suppliers, software teams, and charging infrastructure spread across multiple regions. There is also an important contradiction inside BYD's success. The company may lead the industry in scale, but the Chinese market is so competitive that even the leader remains under constant pressure. Price wars have reduced profit margins, dozens of brands are fighting for the same customers, and consumer demand can shift quickly when incentives or government policies change. A company can sell millions of vehicles and still face serious financial pressure. This matters because impressive specifications are not enough. The Han L must be reliable, profitable, manufacturable at scale, and supported by real charging infrastructure. A 1 megawatt charging demonstration does not automatically mean every driver will experience 1 megawatt charging. A 2.7-second acceleration time does not automatically create long-term brand loyalty, and a large sales number does not guarantee strong profit on every vehicle. This competitive pressure may become BYD's weakness, but it may also be the reason the company moves so quickly. Businesses that feel completely secure often protect their existing products. Businesses surrounded by aggressive competitors are forced to rebuild those products before someone else does. So is this really the end of Tesla? Not in the dramatic way the title might suggest. Tesla still sells some of the world's most recognizable electric vehicles. It controls a major charging network, has enormous influence over automotive software, and remains one of the few car companies capable of turning a product launch into a global cultural event. But the word "end" may mean something different here. It may describe the end of the period when Tesla was automatically treated as the only standard for electric vehicle innovation. The Han L shows that another company can ask a more ambitious question about charging time, motor performance, electrical architecture, and production cost, then place its answer inside a mass-produced vehicle. Tesla no longer needs to move faster only than traditional automakers. It must now compete with an entire Chinese industrial ecosystem advancing in batteries, motors, semiconductors, factories, artificial intelligence, and charging infrastructure at the same time. The competition has changed from one disruptive company fighting an old industry into two completely different technology systems confronting each other directly. The larger picture is becoming difficult to ignore. Tesla proved that electric cars could be more exciting than gasoline cars. BYD is now trying to prove that they can become fast, practical, and affordable enough to make the internal combustion engine increasingly difficult to justify. The Han L is not a perfect vehicle, and its charging claims will still depend on battery temperature, charger availability, electrical infrastructure, software limits, and real-world driving conditions. But it has already achieved something important. It has raised the standard customers will use when judging every future electric vehicle. Once one production car can add hundreds of kilometers in a few minutes, every slower charging vehicle must explain why it still needs more time. Once supercar acceleration becomes available in a mass-produced sedan, luxury brands charging enormous prices for performance begin to face uncomfortable questions. That is how an industry truly changes. It does not always happen when one company disappears. It happens when the rules that once protected the leader stop working. The real question is whether Tesla can change those rules again before BYD changes them first. And that may be the most important part of this entire story. The Han L does not need to outsell every Tesla model immediately. BYD does not need to dominate every country at the same time. It only needs to prove that its technology works, build the charging network required to support it, and gradually move those systems into more affordable vehicles. Once that happens, the pressure spreads through the entire market. Other Chinese manufacturers will respond with their own charging platforms. European companies will be forced to accelerate development. Battery suppliers will compete to support higher charging rates. Governments will begin treating charging capacity as infrastructure rather than a luxury service. And Tesla will have to decide whether its current strategy is still fast enough. The company that transformed the electric car once appeared several years ahead of everyone else. Today, the distance between the leader and the challengers is becoming much smaller. The end of Tesla may never arrive. But the end of Tesla being alone at the front may already be here. And the vehicle making that possibility impossible to ignore is coming from China.